Hello and welcome to our final day of BPM Live 2019, the world's leading online BPM event. My name's Ian Hawkins. I'm the editor of PEX Network, the first port of call for any business or process leader who wants their organization to run smarter, smoother, and more profitably. PEX Network is a global community of 160,000 process professionals from every industry. So whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a regular at our webinars, a very warm welcome to you wherever you're dialing in from. Now, before we start the session proper, a quick reminder, you can contact us at any time during the webinar. Just type your question into the box of the Q&A, hit the submit key, and we will get your questions and ask those at the end of the session. If we can't get to your question during the session, don't panic. Your question will be passed on to our speakers with your contact details so they can find you and respond off air. If you're in the APAC region, you'll be automatically registered for BPM and RPA APAC. That's another online event that we're running. We will be in touch with details of what's on the agenda there and when the sessions are starting. You can also check out the resource list on your page. You'll find the PEX Report 2020 to download. And this is a free benchmarking report with all the stats from the PEX Global Survey with interviews, articles about transformation, and above all, how to thrive in a changing world. And we're looking ahead to 2020. It is going to be, changing. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. There's also a link to OPEX Week, our major conference in Orlando. You'll find a packed agenda for that and the confirmed speakers and details on how to secure your place. It's absolutely worth your time going off and having a look and checking that out. You can also join us on BPM Live on Twitter. That's our hashtag. Or, let me just have a quick look here. There's another one. If you want to join the conversation on Twitter with hashtag Discover Automation Success and hashtag Assist Edge Discover. Those are all specific to this particular session. A reminder, you're going to get your CPD points for just attending today. And the more of these sessions you attend, the more CPD points you get. Finally, a reminder, this whole session is being recorded, so you can watch it back whenever you like, and share with colleagues who you think would benefit from the content. As you can see, I've got the first slide up for this session, which is going to be available on demand from us, as well as on the EdgeVerve channel. So you can post your questions on the chat window. Our panel will respond to your queries. We've been through that. We've done the Twitter thing, but there's also at @edge_verve if you want to get in contact with them. So today we're going to be hearing from Omer Hafeez and Deepinder Dhuria, and I'm going to hand over to Deepinder right now. Deepinder, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everyone, for joining the webinar. So we have divided this webinar. Basically, the agenda for the webinar is to understand how discovery of the processes is critical for RPA implementations. And we have divided this webinar into a couple of key areas wherein we will discuss about how enterprises are navigating through their intelligent automation journey today. What are the challenges that the organizations are facing? How process discovery is the way forward, and how would Assist Edge Discover helps organizations in unlocking the automation success. And then we will quickly open the floor for the Q&A session, and I think that's about it. So let's just look into the first area wherein we will just do a quick walkthrough on how enterprises today are doing or navigating their automation journey. Based on the survey conducted by Forrester and EdgeVerve, we have seen that around 53% of the organizations have already started adapting the automation journey. With this, this is expected to increase to 72% in next. I'm sorry, the slides just moved on. Give me a second. This is expected to increase to 72% in the next 2 years. And if this rate continues, we are hoping that the RPA would become a universal adopted technology in next 5 years. We are also seeing that organizations are showing more and more interest in the intelligent automation and the impact it brings on the digital transformation journey for their departments. RPA today has helped the organizations improving compliance, improving their quality and accuracy, improving the productivity, and also resulted in cost reduction. So now when we look at the overall digital transformation journey today, automation has become a key area or a key technology that everybody is looking to adopt to. Today, automation is leading in intelligence automation and cognitive automation for doing or automating the processes. It is also, we are also looking at attended and unattended automation as a hybrid automation gaining a lot of traction. And also organizations are now looking more and more towards RPA analytics as well as super bots to help their organizations automate the processes quickly. So basically what we are seeing is that automation is helping organizations build their future and go into the next level of digital transformation. But there are certain challenges that comes with the automation. Based on the study conducted by multiple consulting organizations, we have seen that around 63% of the organization do not meet their deadlines for the RPA projects. Around 30 to 40% of the initial RPA projects either fail or do not meet their requirements. When we look at into details on why these challenges are occurring, most of them are pertain to the organization not able to identify the right processes for automation, or the processes that have been identified are very much based on the SMEs or the process SMEs knowledge, and there is a lot of manual documentation involved. Even the quality of the data that has been used or the processes that have been mapped has some fragmentation and inconsistencies. So what we basically see is that there is a direct correlation between the deep understanding of the process and the success of automating it. To discuss it further and explain it more, I will hand it over to Omer, who is our prospect client from QA Limited. He will walk you through his enterprise journey in discovering the process and identifying the processes for his RPA and what all challenges they face during that. Omer, over to you.
Thank you very much, Deepinder. Hi, my name is Omer, and we are one of the prospective clients of Edgeverve, and we are in the process of evaluating and acquiring RPA technology. So normally what happens from client perspective, I normally use three-step process to identify the process, what is best candidate process for robotics process automation, and I also keep in mind that this process should be critical to the business as well. And secondly, I look from this point of view that the process should be representative. I gather the knowledge from different stakeholders and model that process. And finally, I also look into that to what extent the process is resource intensive. And if it is resource intensive, it has to be mundane so that the RPA can take over and derive productivity for us. So, we always we can map a process and we can see how the process is flowing. But in my experience, we always lack a key metric from where I can quantify the quality of the discovered process. So normally when I would like to quantify the quality of the discovered process, I use 4 key matrices. I use construct validity, then reproducibility, to what extent the process is understandable, and what is the scalability. So when I say construct validity, I see to what extent the discovered process can be automated, and what is the capture quality of the discovered process. Secondly, how the process can be reproduced to deliver identical results every time, and understandability. So to what extent the process we have captured is understandable and comprehensive to the process analyst and the business stakeholders, and finally to what extent the process is computationally demanding. So I will take a use case scenario in the following slides to elaborate this more. So once we establish the quality dimension of the discovered process, how we can identify the quality of the discovered process is up to the mark. So there are two key areas which we normally use, is to what extent the process is accurate and to what extent the process is comprehensive. So in accuracy, we normally see three key areas: recallability, precision, and generalization. So recallability is more about to check the event log of the process, to what extent the event log is recallable, and precision is it fitting well on the discovered process or not, and generalization is like is it overfitting or underfitting. And in comprehensibility, it's simplicity is key. You can make anything as complex as you want, but keeping the process simple is the key to successfully capture any business process. And structuredness always supplement simplicity. So I would like to take a use case scenario here. Primarily, I belong to a higher education domain within the UK. So I captured a student admission process. So it's generally it goes through different domains. If any student applies for the admission, so a student could come as a general applicant, or through a feeder agency, and then it passes on to the recruitment team, and from recruitment team it goes to the admissions team, and from admissions team it passed on to the registry team. So that's a typical simplified process. But it is very resource intensive, and a lot of repetition required in this process. So why I think that this particular captured process is a good candidate process for RPA, which we are aiming to go live in next couple of weeks. So RPA is a very good tool to open emails and attachment. I'm talking about basic RPA. Logging on to enterprise solutions, moving files, and reading and writing to the databases, and extracting structured data, and finally following if and then decision rules. The process which I have captured is a very good candidate for the RPA, because it is repetitive in nature, is heavily data driven, which is primarily input through keyboard or copy paste, and it's a quite high volume transaction. Like we normally process 15 to 18,000 applications per intake, and it is highly definable because it occurs same time every time. So when I have captured the process, I interacted with number of teams, the sales and marketing teams, admissions teams, and registry team. So when I analyze some basic data sets, I realized that 10 workdays annually lost within our organization, and there are 20 employees who work in these domains, on particularly dealing with these applications. So 200 days are lost every year. And we normally, our SLAs are 72 hours turnaround time for any student application, and if it leads to student dissatisfaction, because turnaround time is slightly longer than it should be. So this process is quite manual and prone to errors, and if once you spot some missing document, it adds further delay to the process. And when we do the decision communication to the applicants, it is applicant by applicant process. You can well imagine like going through 15 to 18,000 application and then communicating the decision to these students. And when we move the data within systems from in-house systems to cloud-hosted systems and vice versa, it leads to errors and typos and delays. So when I did this gap analysis and capture the whole business process, it took me good about 6 weeks to capture the business process. Later on, when I interacted with Edgeverve, they have some tool which is called automated process discovery, which is quite robust in nature. I would hand over back to Deepinder, who would take you through how automated process discovery can help your organization.
Thanks, Omer. I think Omer took a very great example of showing the process that typically we take as an initiation RPA process when we embark our RPA journey. Now, the steps that Omer had highlighted in the matrix that he had captured, right? So those are the metrics basically where we want to focus on when we take a decision towards RPA, right? That I am able to save 10 days, I'm able to save 72 hours around my process, okay? But it took him, a couple of weeks to totally map out the process, talk to multiple stakeholders, and then finally create those metrics out to take a decision that this is the process that I want to take for automation. That's where what we see is that today, most of the automation requirements are driven by manual processes. It requires either a consultant or a SME like Omer to go and get together with multiple stakeholders, understand those processes, and then document them together along with the map as well as the matrices. This method is basically not only time consuming, but it also at times would result in some biases, because when a consultant is talking to multiple stakeholders, there might be some biasing from the SMEs who are talking about the process that they are running. Even a consultant or a SME who is creating that map might have his biases when he's creating that map on the chart, and pointing out that because he's taking it towards automation, there might be some bias towards that. So this is why what we believe is that there should be a technology or a tool that can capture the data, a user versus application interaction, even though it's a very manual interaction between a user and user and the application. There should be a tool that should be able to capture it and convert it into insights along with the process maps. And that's where what we believe is that process discovery plays a very critical role. And it is one such technology that enables the enterprises to do the automated discovery of their processes that can help them in their automation journey. So what process discovery basically does is, if I have to put it in a very simple terms, it's kind of a three-phase approach wherein it captures the bits and bytes of the data, the user versus application interaction that is happening on the systems. Then it takes that data across multiple users, mines it through a deep learning or a intelligent algorithm. It maps out the process and then finally gives the insights to the automation COE or the SME to decide whether they want to go for the automation of that particular process or they should leave it. Basically, these insights would help both SMEs as well as the consultants to take this decision forward and embark the overall journey of the automation. So what we are seeing is that the process discovery would not only unlock the true value of the automation, it basically accelerates and amplifies the overall journey. So it helps you in strategizing which processes across your enterprise you should take into consideration while doing the automations. You might be doing multiple processes, discovering, or even from manual discovery, you might be talking to multiple departments. But there is always a challenge to see which process should I pick first vis-a-vis which process should I not even pick up when it comes for my automation engagement. It also helps in looking at the empirical approach of the data analysis. So when you are discovering a process, maybe you are just talking to a single process SME and understanding how this process works. But what process discovery helps out is it looks at multiple users who are performing that particular process, takes that data into its consideration, does an empirical approach on that data, and then finally gives the output on telling you which process and what are the deviations across that process that needs to be considered. It also helps in baselining and assessing a continuous process improvement. So you would be able to know which process you need to do the automation for. Can I have a ROI around that particular process when I'm trying to consider it? So these are some of the benefits that process discovery, or the way process discovery would help you out in the organization. Besides that, there are a multitude of benefits that we see with process discovery bringing on the table. Whether it is with respect to the non-invasive technology that this is, wherein the users who are doing their processes will not be hindered in their day-to-day activities when the data is being captured and the processes are being discovered. The accuracy increases multifold. There are no human biases with respect to the map generation. It looks at the real data, empirical data, and creates the process maps based on that. There is a clear transparency on what processes have happened. The clarity is absolutely clear prior to the RPA implementation itself. There is audit trail of the processes being performed by the multiple users and why a specific output is relevant. The scalability also increases because you can do a discovery across the enterprise at a single shot, rather than a consultant or a business process owner going and talking to multiple stakeholders and then manually generating those maps. There is a rapid scalability involved with process discovery, wherein you can run the discovery process across the organization and find out which process you need to take for automation. The opportunity mapping is also one of the benefit that organization sees, basically looking at the which process you need to prioritize first vis-a-vis which process you do not need to prioritize. And that also ties into the business case development of the RPA journey. So now that we understand what process discovery is, I would just walk you through on how assisted discover basically helps organization and enterprises unlock the automation success, and what are the key platforms or the products that it is offering. So Assistage basically is a intelligent automation platform wherein it starts with the discovery process, wherein it looks at the empirical data and gives you a process automatically discovered to be consumed by the automation products. And then finally, we will talk about discovery in next coming slides, but I also want to touch upon the other products that we are offering as part of platform. So it also gives the automate, the core intelligent automation product, which looks at the cognitive and the AI ML capabilities to do a more intelligent process automation. And it is a next step or next upgrade from the core RPA or a basic RPA, wherein we are looking at OCR, vision in the chatbot automation. And then finally, we move towards orchestrate, wherein there is a human and digital interaction, wherein we are trying to bring both humans and digital together, or both human and bots together to do the automation and kind of bring a singularity between them. So looking into detail on how assisted discover basically works is the product, or the assisted discover as a product, basically looks at the key data that the user is interacting with that application. So whether it's a keyboard or a functional event, a mouse event, or a copy paste event, whatever he's doing on his screen, the data would be captured or scraped through for that specific application. That data is consolidated together across multiple users and is fed to a AI neural network, which is a Edgeworth proprietary. And the enrichment and the analysis happens using that neural network. Once the data is enriched and the analysis has been done, the assisted discover basically gives three outputs. One is the task map. Basically, these are the process maps that the user is doing. So if a particular user is doing a purchase order creation on his screen, and there are multiple deviations of how a purchase order can be done, that output would be reflected as part of those task maps. The second is the analytics reports. So these reports, basically what it does is it will give you the interactions on what the activities user is doing. So if there are very high copy paste events that the user is doing, or a very high usage of a certain application, those analysis would come as part of this, along with some key metrics like average handling time of that particular task, what are the frequency of a certain deviation of a particular process, and so on and so forth. And then the final output is the automation blueprint, which basically gives the organization an understanding on which process you need to prioritize. So it divides the overall discovered process across the enterprises into a 2x2 matrix and gives you an understanding that a specific process should be prioritized first as compared to a process that is not very critical or cannot be automated very easily. It should be either holded off or should not be considered for automation. So these are the three key output that Discover basically gives as part of the product. Now, the next step is the next question is, where do we start when we embark our automation journey, and how do we understand how assisted discover works? So what assisted discover and EdgeWork offers is a try before buy, wherein there can be a test drive kind of a thing, which we offer as a discover, experience and engage model, wherein the organization can do a evaluation agreement, pick a sample process and analyze that. What it gives you is it helps you understand the product capabilities in action. It lets you know what data is being captured and is it in line with your company's policies. And then finally give you an output for that particular process that has been discovered and give you an understanding on how it will help you out in your automation journey. So I think that's where we will stop, and I'll open the floor for Q&A.
Great, many thanks indeed. So we've got a couple of questions that have come in already. Just a reminder that anybody who would like to put their questions in, just make use of the Q&A box, and we'll pass those on. First question I've got to ask is, what are the challenges you face when capturing the business process for automation? Because surely that's not entirely straightforward.
Right. I would like to answer that. In my experience, when we were capturing business process for RPA enablement, I found three key challenges. When we talk to the people on the ground, there is an element of reluctance from the people on the ground. They are not sure how the change would impact them, or more understandably, they think probably their jobs are in danger. So then, we need to explain them that the technology will be complementary to your routine task. So this is the first challenge I encountered. The second one is the quality of the documentation. What happens normally in organization, the process was devised, say, about a year or 2 years ago, and that was documented at the time of when you start the process, and after that the process is never reviewed. It's business as usual. So the quality of documentation is very vital in capturing business process. If it is not reviewed, then you have to go back to the documentation and adjust it according to what you're trying to do. And finally, if the process is split between the departments, that turns out to be quite challenging, from which particular team or department the process starts and where the process concludes, and to define the boundaries in between, from where it enters into the first team and it flows to the second, and if it concludes on the third team. So how you define the boundaries. So these are the three key challenges I encountered during the process capture.
Okay, it sounds to me like there's a sort of a technical side to it, which is something that you need your technology all on side with. But you've also got this very cultural side. You've got silos. You've got where some bits of the organization don't talk to the other. You've got people that don't want to make these changes because they fear that it means that it's the end of their jobs. Is that a sort of fair assessment?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so what you have to do is you have to make sure you overcome all of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems to me a process discovery is very much about trying to break down those silos. I'm just saying this again because it's something we've heard throughout this series of webinars, is that it gives people at the top of the organization much greater visibility of what's going on throughout.
Yes, exactly. And I think there is another aspect to that. The more you talk about within the teams, the more you generate a buzz around the technology and make sure that people understand that this is something that's gonna assist them in their laborious tasks, and they can focus more on value addition kind of things. So I think then you'll be able to break those silos and overcome these challenges.
Okay, I think I'm just nailing the point down, because implementation is one of those things that we come back to very often, where we say, well, the technology is great. I mean, your own statistics showed at the beginning, when you're looking at, there's nothing wrong with RPA as a technology, but you look at how many of those projects fail, and you have to ask why, and you say, is it something to do with the rollout of it and the implementation of it? So the idea is that process discovery is a really key way of making sure that RPA that people are really focused on is a successful project for an organization.
Yes, absolutely. The process discovery obviously we are piloting at the moment. We haven't rolled out on full scale, but process discovery is the key. And I would like to highlight a little bit more on this, how we assess a particular process is actually fit for RP enablement. So normally what we do here in QA, we apply a criteria based on two aspects. The process, first of all, the process has to be critical to the business. Either it could be a client-facing process, or it could cause a significant disruption within the business. And second criteria is the resource intensity. To what extent the process is resource intensive, how much workforce it is utilizing at one time, and from there we capture the business process and see where RPA can help us.
Okay, that's all useful stuff. So a question here from Kieran Suman, who would like to know, how do you know the process boundaries? What are the criteria for What are the criteria for identifying candidate processes?
Yes, as I have, I think I already answered the question. Yes, as I have mentioned that normally in our process discovery, I applied the criteria which based on two key areas. The process has to be critical to the business, and the second one, the resource intensity. For example, a process is client-facing, and if anything which impact customer satisfaction, or there is a new competition in the market, then it obviously impact the client satisfaction. And if you are a very much client-facing organization, this would really impact to your business, and it is critical to your business. And second part of this for this step is could it cause a significant disruption? For example, we run a payroll normally at the end of the month. If the process breaks down just before the end of the month, that is a huge problem for the business. But if it breaks down at the start of the business, it wouldn't pose as much as threat to the business as it would at the end of the month. And the second part of it, as I explained earlier, that resource intensity. So normally the key metric for us is we normally see the process. If there are 5 people at least involved in that process, then we look into it, how we can make it better, and how we can use RPA to derive efficiencies and productivity.
Okay. Let's have a look. What else have we got here? This is from Kayla. It says, how does Discovery manage the scenario where team members are responsible for completing various processes on a first-in, first-out basis? For example, product-specific order processing.
Sure, and I'll take this question. So basically, the way Discover works is it is kind of independent of the users coming in, coming out, and using those systems in. Usually, the data is being captured very intelligently, or a smart data capture kind of a thing, wherein once you define that your process starts here and ends there, over the period of a day or a week, it will continuously look at those processes where the start of that process happened, or somebody has clicked on that particular order to be created, and it will automatically recognize that the process is now started. It will start capturing that data points in, and when somebody has submitted, it will start understanding that somebody has ended that process, and it will end that. And also, it's not tied to a product specific, because in the end, we should not forget that we are doing a discovery for more to understand how it will help us in RPA as well as the bottleneck. So even if they are doing it for multiple products, it does not matter, because in the end, the process would be going in a certain sequence and might be taking certain deviation from that particular sequence. And that is basically can be configured intelligently, and then the data can be captured in such a way.
Okay. Omer, I've got to ask you this because I think it's important, which is what was your main driver for embarking on this whole project in the first place? I know it's something that lots of people are thinking about, and I just want to get a feel on what your main motivation is for making this transformation, and maybe tell us why now and why you're making this change.
Right. Yeah, there are a couple of things for this embarking onto this RPA journey. Some of the processes we are dealing, they are quite repetitive in nature, and secondly, they are very resource intensive. We have a lot of people working in different teams doing the same thing over and over, it leads to, because they are very laborious in nature, so it leads to errors, and it causes a problem for our regulatory compliance. I would like to take you back to one of the slides actually here. So this one, this particular slide that truly sums up our case. Because when we were evaluating different solutions, it really come across to us that RPA is the right fit for our business process, because it improves compliance, because the education sector in UK is highly regulated. So, and we need to do a lot of compliance to different regulatory bodies. So it improves the regulatory compliance for us. And secondly, it reduces the errors to many folds, whereas we cannot remove those errors if we are doing it manually. And the third driver is it improves productivity for us. Because as I explained to you, approximately in only these three departments where we are piloting the project, we lose 200 days annually. So we see this technology as a very good solution to our problem. So if I give you a brief example, if a student contact with us to the registration stage, normally it takes from 40 minutes to 80 minutes per application to go into the system. And if we average out that, normally we take 65 minutes per application. And when we modeled the RPA technology, the time reduced to only 3.5 minutes. So this is a very good technology for us to adopt and answer to our many questions. And also it reduces cost for us. Because of a lot of people, they're working on the same process repeatedly, it costs us a lot, and we can use those for more value addition processes.
Okay, so pretty broad. It's to do with a combination of factors. It's about keeping up with regulations. It's about the end user's experience of what you do, and it's about reducing costs along the way. That's useful. Yeah. Thank you. So the question is from Pratap, which says RPA is meant to be nimble. How do you strike the balance between focusing on process improvement before going for automation through RPA? So I don't know who is that one for Deepinder, really?
Sorry, Ian, can you repeat the question again?
Of course I can. RPA is meant to be nimble. How do you strike the balance between focusing on process improvement before going for automation through RPA?
Okay, so I think I would answer it from the standpoint of the product and how process discovery as a concept would help in the process improvement as well, and then maybe Omer can take from the business side. See, once you are looking at a particular process, it's a very valid question. Once you're looking at a particular process, it does not mean that it's directly meant for automation. And that's where what discovery does is when the process has been automatically discovered, it gives you an understanding, the matrices that it captures along with that, like what is the handling time at a particular process, right? What user actions are taking a lot of time. All those metrics are being displayed to the process SMEs to take a call that whether they first need to do a process improvement on those particular processes before embarking the automation journey. Based on our experience with certain clients, we have even seen once we have done a discovery of those processes, what we have seen is at certain point in time, those particular processes, instead of doing the automation, the matrices that are provided at the application level and the time that users are spending on those specific manual tasks is so high that once there is a improvement that is put in place for that, they are able to significantly reduce those effort times, okay? And then they can start thinking whether they want to move it towards automation or not. So I think that's where the process discovery would help in both process improvement as well as towards embarking the automation. Omer, if you want to take it from the business standpoint as well.
Yes. So when we capture the process, as I explained in my previous answer, like it has a lot of benefits for us, as like in terms of cost and then quality and accuracy, and it enhances productivity for us. As I told you, like we are in the pilot stage, so that's all I can say for the moment. So once we fully roll out, so probably then we are in a position to fully evaluate how that particular process capture, like automated process capture, would help us.
Lovely, thank you very much. I'm just putting up a slide now, which is a call out to the audience, really, which is if you would like to speak to a process discovery expert or get more information on process discovery, or indeed request a demo from Assist Edge Discover, you can just tick one of those boxes and hit the submit button. I will pass that on to the guys and they'll get back to you. Let's go on to, I think we've got time for maybe one more question before we go to the end. And that is, let's have a look, from Dr. Stebbings, who'd like to know, process boundaries, possibly better served by understanding the inputs and output elements. Who consumes the outcomes?
Okay, so I'll take that question first. So basically, the output of a process, right? And once you have defined the boundaries with respect to the input parameters that even Omer explained from the business standpoint, and even from the technology standpoint, when we take the data, the outcome is basically meant to be consumed either by the automation expert or automation subject matter expert. So what we are seeing out in the market is that a lot of enterprises are now making their automation zones or automation COEs, and they have dedicated automation experts who are continuously identifying which processes they can help the organization to put forward and generate some ROI on that. so that one particular consumer for the overall discover both the opportunity assessment as well as the discovery process is the automation center of excellence. And then also the output that Discover generates can be consumed. The level of data that it captures and the output that it provides is so detailed that it can be used for very easy configuration of the RPA. So any RPA product requires a configuration for the processes, and those configurations are made very much easy by the Discover. So I think those are so that's basically what it means is that even developers can consume that output because it helps them in understanding how to configure that particular process in their RPA product and what level of details they need to put configuration so that their automation works in a perfect way. So I think those are the two key leaders. Besides that, the process SMEs also need to look, like I explained in the previous answer as well, that to understand where the bottlenecks are, the process maps and the metrics gives them a lot of information to understand where the bottlenecks are, which applications are creating those problems, where they need to focus when it comes to improvement. So I think these are the three key players who would consume this outcome.
Okay, great. I'm going to close down the survey right now. And I'm just going to invite everybody to, if you'd like to get more information, you can write to contact@edgeverve.com or visit edgeverve.com/assistedge-discover. Thanks very much indeed. That's all we've got time for. Thank you very much to our speakers. And just like to let you know, if you haven't got your question, don't worry. We are going to send those over and you'll get a response offline. There's just one more session of the whole of BPM Live. It's happening in 15 minutes. It's me having a conversation with Brent Harder about all of the sessions we've had, some of the key learnings. So it's really important that you come along to that and get an overview of the whole event. And if you've missed a few sessions, maybe it'll point you back in the direction of some useful stuff. So wherever you are in the world, from us here in London, thanks very much for your time. Have a great day.